Hello everyone and welcome to QUTV Game Day. I'm Parker Lymanstall.
And I'm Lucas Laudentine.
This is the pregame show for the matchup between the Westgate Christian Ravens and the Quincy University Hawks. The Hawks are coming into this game on a 2-game losing streak. Last week, the Hawks suffered a tough loss against the Truman State Bulldogs, 28-21. But first, let's talk about the positives. Here are some of the top performers from the game. On the offensive side of the ball, Drake Davis went 34 for 51 for 316 yards, 3 touchdowns. However, he did have 1 interception. But a quarterback is only as good as his receivers he is throwing to, and with Anik McKenzie out last week, it was Luke Johnson who was tasked with trying to fill that role. Johnson had 5 receptions for 96 yards. One of those receptions ended up being a 40-yard touchdown to get the Hawks on the board late in the second quarter. But not to be forgotten, the defense had some noteworthy performances as well, as linebacker Brock Wiley had one of Quincy's 2 sacks and 3 tackles for a loss, while he only made 5 tackles when he made contact. A big play for the defense was imminent. Lastly, we had Brock Inman, who made a surprising appearance after his stats for the game was questionable, and he had a team-leading 10 tackles. One of those was a tackle for a loss. However, we do want to give a shout to Damari Wilson. Wilson showcased his ability to make big plays with this amazing one-handed touchdown catch to keep the Hawks in the game late into the fourth quarter. I just gotta say, Lucas, that is a phenomenal one-handed grab there. Now with the positives, the Hawks did have some areas that they did struggle in. Lucas, what did you see from last week's game that you could see about the Hawks' struggles?
Well, I felt like it was just one of those games where you had Truman State got up early in the second quarter, and we know Quincy is a team where they want to run the ball, 30-plus times a game, and it's just when you're down that big. Unfortunately, they kind of had to abandon, who they are as a core, as an identity for their team. Now, that being said, Drake Davis still had, quite a game, but we just know that that's not a way that the Hawks want to win. Now, the Hawks defense was still very good. You look at Truman State, they had 276 yards as a team. That's usually, you look at that, right, about 100 yards or so, you expect a touchdown. So that's not even 3 touchdowns. Now, they'd have 1 special teams touchdown in there, but that tells me that the Hawks defense was amazing outside of, Truman State having some big plays every now and then.
Absolutely, and also one thing we've seen with the Hawks all year is that they need to play 2 good halves of football. We saw it in the game against Missouri S&T, and we saw it this last week. They're going to have to eventually go and play 2 good halves of football. But on a more positive side of things, going into this week's game, we saw some new faces this last week, but this week presents an opportunity to see even more new faces on the field. With players like Tion Dollar and Anik McKenzie out with injuries last week, we got the chance to see Kareem Carswell showcase his ability to break and avoid tackles with this nice run right over here. I mean, that's just fantastic getting to see him breaking all those tackles. And also we got to see running back Cameron Cox see not only could be a weapon in the running game, but the passing game with this receiving touchdown right over here. And then the aforementioned Luke Johnson with this amazing grab to get the Hawks on the board at the touchdown. He showed that when he is given the opportunity, he's able to make big plays. Now, assuming the starters take care of business, this game could be seen as a get-right game for the Hawks, since they will be able to make some much-needed adjustments that they need based off last week. This week, also, the game this week could function almost as a tryout for next season with a few starters graduating. This is a good chance for some of those players riding the bench right now to prove themselves and say, hey, this is my spot for next season. I'm going to be the starter at this position for next year. Now, their opponent this week is the Westgate Christian Ravens, as we mentioned earlier. They have an interesting background. Lucas, what would you do the pleasure of telling us a bit about them?
Yeah, so Westgate's actually an independent football program. They're not affiliated with any sort of, major collegiate, association like the NCAA or the NAIA. Next year, they will be joining a new conference that will be made up of other independent programs. And, this is just one of those where they're traveling around, getting a chance to play against other schools.
Absolutely. And that's just the really interesting thing. And people, like when you said, when people hear independent, they think like Notre Dame or UConn when it comes to football. So this is just a little different area that we're getting to see when it comes to players. So now, with that being said, when we come back, I'll be joined by freshman quarterback Tristan Graham, and he will talk about his development here in the program so far.
Are you looking for a career that combines innovation, problem solving, and creativity? Quincy University's engineering degree program specializes in electrical and mechanical engineering, providing students with a well-rounded education with hands-on experience.
We're looking for exceptional engineering graduates with the skills necessary to take on the challenges of today.
Let Quincy University help you achieve your goal. Contact us today and we will design a success plan just for you.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we mentioned that this game could be a good opportunity to see those who do not get much playing time. Also in this is the development of those on the bench and what lessons they are learning from the action that they see on the field. To tell us about his development and his experiences thus far is freshman quarterback Tristan Graham. Tristan, how are we doing today, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It's great to have you here in the studio, sir. So now you and I have talked off camera a lot, going back all about your experiences. So first things first, we know that you had a few schools that you were looking at before you came here. What was it that made you choose Quincy above them all?
Well, the short answer would be I felt like God put me here, and I felt like he told me, hey, Quincy's the right place, through multiple people and really praying about it. But to be honest, I love the coaching staff. I love the school itself and the small town, and it's not too far from home. It's not too close as well. But yeah, just at the end of the day, it felt right. It felt like the right decision. So
great. With that, you mentioned about the coaching staff. So this season, you've been working under quarterback Drake Davis and head coach Jason Kilday. What lessons have you, whether it be learning from them or someone else on the coaching staff, that you hope to implement into your game?
I would say the big thing is college is definitely different than high school. The speed is different, the size is different, and the total game plan is different. So picking up the mental game has really been the biggest thing for me, and that's been the biggest jump from high school football. You're not just throwing it to your best receiver on the field, but at times you're looking at the defense and what the defense is doing, and you're making the correct read. So that's been the biggest jump, and behind Drake, you're able to see that from a veteran quarterback and pick up all the different things that he's learned over the years.
That's so cool. And then I mentioned you and I have talked off camera a lot about both professional and college football. That brings me to ask you this question. What quarterback do you idolize and do you try to mimic their style?
I would say Patrick Mahomes, just because the creativity of the game that he plays, he just plays the game totally different, and that's hard for defenses to defend. And Coach Nelson talks about it all the time. He's like, make defenses not want to defend. And nobody wants to defend Patrick Mahomes because he can beat you in the pass game with his arm at any angle. And he can also beat you with the run game. We saw that this past week, he could lower the shoulder a little bit. So yeah, I love the creativity about that and making defenses not want to defend.
We're also going to be seeing any no-look passes potentially like Patrick Mahomes does.
I think I'll get in the dog pound with Kilday for that. So no.
Real great. Well, Tristan, I want to say thank you so much for coming in today, buddy. It is a pleasure to have you here into the studio. So thank you so much, sir. And with that, we're going to take another short break where we will wrap things up, talking about the schedule and the upcoming matches for the Hawks when we come back.
At Quincy University, your success is by design. Rooted in the Franciscan and Catholic tradition, QU has more than 50 academic programs that will set you up for success. We'll work together to design a plan just for you. Visit discover.quincy.edu to schedule your campus tour today.
And we are back. Before we let you all go, we want to take a brief look at the schedule ahead for the Quincy Hawks as they prepare to wrap up their 2024 campaign. So after this game that they have against Westgate Christian, they are going to have their senior night game against the William Jewell Cardinals. That'll be next weekend to wrap things up at home for the Hawks. Then going into next weekend, they will be on the road against the Southwest Baptist Bearcats, which will help wrap things up for GLVC conference play. And after that, they will finish their season on the road against Missouri Western. That is really good schedule to look at here going forward, Lucas.
Yeah, I think there's two games looking ahead that I think are really exciting and should be as a fan watching them. William Jewell is going to be a really good game because William Jewell has a great running back, McCullough. He's almost at 1,000 yards already at this point in the year. And of course, you have Missouri Western to wrap up the year. You got a road game going at St. Joe, Missouri, and MIAA teams, regardless of what their record says, that's never an easy out.
Absolutely. The MIAA is one of the premier conferences when it comes to NCAA Division II football, so it's definitely going to be a really good test for the Hawks. And also, even though they won't be able to qualify for a bowl game this year, it's still these next two conference games against William Jewell and Southwest Baptist are a good way to gauge where the program's at in their development. Are they ready to be that contender for a bowl game or maybe even a playoff spot next year? And I think that that is a really big point for the Hawks to take away from and hopefully come away with 2 victories on the road and win for senior night for all of those lovely seniors that we have on the squad. Both on that note, we are going to wrap up. This has been Parker Lymanstall
And Lucas Laudentine.
and we want to thank you so much for joining us for QUTV Game Day. For more QUTV Game Day events like this, be sure to check us out on social media and qmedia.net. Now enjoy the game, everyone.